Nahum like Graham.
What's going on, everyone? It's Nahum like Graham and LFC Transfer Room here. We are here on an international break, but there's been quite a lot of Liverpool-related news going on at the moment. People have been talking in the media. There's a couple of players that are linked, and someone's been over to Saudi Arabia, and so we're going to talk about a little bit to do that today. And to help me get through this, we have Lewis, Good Sports Review, subscribing to YouTube, and Nahum like Graham. Lewis, how are you, sir? How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm very good. Happy to be on again, second day in a row. So thank you very much for having me again.
It's Lewis week.
It always is. Always is.
And how are you, sir?
Good, yeah. By contrast, I suppose I've been slacking in recent weeks. A bit busy last time, so this is the first time back in, I think, 2 weeks. So happy to be back. Good
to get you back on. And I was catching up with the Howard Webb stuff the other day, and it just takes the energy out of me. So when we get news like we've got today, it's something more interesting to talk about, isn't it? And I'm going to start by talking about the Manu Kone story that's been breaking, which is if he didn't get that knee injury in the under-21s, there's a chance we could have seen him in a Liverpool shirt. Now, I'm not certain about this player. I'm still not sold on him because I think his stats don't scream to me impactful Liverpool player, because nothing's off the chart brilliant. You know, if you look at him compared to, let's say, Endo, he's statistically a lot worse a player. But I get he is 22, he is young, he does have potential. Do you think we still might see him in a Liverpool shirt, or do you think we should have gone for him? You know,
I've always been sort of on the fence about him because I think he is a sort of physical monster. He's about 6'4", but I mean the main issue I've always had with the transfer is he's very.
Oh, I mean that is a strong opinion.
I mean, that was wow.
Lewis, what do you think about him?
I mean, I don't think I feel as strongly as that, to be honest. But no, good. He looks all right. I think the big thing is he's just young, and like Nahum started to say, he's very physically strong. All this stuff about the injury, was it an injury resulting from like a tackle, or was it just an injury just happened out of nowhere? Because that'll sort of go towards my next point. Was this major injury something that he suffered from another player?
It was a shock injury, but I don't think they knew the details of what the knee injury was. And I think that probably is one of the things that puts you off, because you don't know if it's impact ligament, how far, or anything like that. And I don't think that you can always tell. So I get the hesitancy.
Oh, we're back. Yeah.
It's all right. I'll chuck him back in. So, yeah, I mean, just tell me.
Well, if the injury was something that he sustained because of some sort of like direct collision, or if it was we just don't know what kind of injury it is, then that's fair enough. But I remember when we were nearly signed Nabil Fekir and we pulled out of it because he had knee problems, and maybe this is something that we would have went through the whole process again just to get to the end and have them say, well, there's clearly an issue here and it might just not have happened. If it's an age profile thing and we're looking for a young CDM who can fill the role, he might fit the bill. But like the comment said there, he might have been more impressive than Thuram in the under-21s, but I just don't think it's a player. I think for CDM, we need a ready-made player more than anything. Endo just clearly hasn't done it just yet, and it's all well and good signing a young player who might grow into something great, but we all remember the likes of like Naby Keita. We need someone who's ready to just go in now more than anything, I think, more than a young player who might develop into a great player in that position.
Nahum, you were going to tell us what you thought before the internet rudely interrupted us.
I don't even think it was the internet, because I was still in here listening to you all. Just the microphone and camera disconnected at the same time somehow.
I think it's Paul Lindo's fault, to be honest. I think Paul Lindo's just...
I blame him. But I was saying he was quite injury prone. You talking about sort of like how the injury came about. He has a significant sort of time out from Mönchengladbach, and I think the main sort of crux of my point is that, like you said, comparing him to someone like Naby Keita, you don't want to buy someone again out of the Bundesliga who comes in sort of the intensity of the Premier League, the physicality of it all, and is suffering from major injuries because of that, especially with the work rate that Liverpool demand. He has got a good work rate, that's the thing, and maybe he's not sort of massively impressive statistically, and there's certainly positives to a data-driven approach, sort of how much you can derive from statistics, something that Liverpool have used heavily in the past. But equally, there's something to be said about Klopp bringing the best out of players. People don't realise the sort of effectiveness of people like Gini Wijnaldum, and maybe he wasn't off the chart statistically, but then once he leaves, you can see that there's this missing piece that just wasn't there to begin with. And it feels like Kone, with the like I said, the 6'4" stature, the what I can garner is a good work rate. Putting him in, maybe giving him some time to develop under Klopp, could make him a world beater, but you don't know. So it's something that maybe could have been, but I wouldn't go for right now.
Yeah, I kind of get it. I mean, I've got some of his stats up here, and I mean, it's fair to say his defensive stats are decent. Tackles 2.9 a game, top 12%. Tackles 1.6 a game, top 17%. Tackles in defensive, third, top 9%. And he also has the other thing that everyone was, really up on Thuram about, which is successful take-ons. He's in the top 3%. He does four attempted take-ons a game. He's in the top 3%. Successful take-ons, 1.92 per game, the top 3%. So he's a player very similar, it seems, in many ways to Thuram, but a little bit more defensive orientated, Lewis. So are we talking about a player who actually, in games like we saw against Brighton, who could just tackle, drive out with the ball and let us counter-attack? Actually, this would have been a more successful midfield deployment than, let's say, someone like McAllister, who is sensational but plays on the half turn. That's when McAllister came alive against Brighton, when he was on the half turn and he was going forward. But that's not what we needed in that first half.
No, and I said it on the stream yesterday. Gravenberch would have been the better ideal start in that Brighton game, I think, instead of maybe Harvey Elliott, just someone who can track back a bit better and more physically strong on the ball. And look, McAllister's brilliant. We all know he's brilliant, but unless he's in a double pivot, unless there's someone alongside him, he isn't as good. He isn't as effective defensively. He's better when he's going forward and providing balls in for attackers like a Nunez or a Diaz or a Salah. And we've seen centre mids who have tracked back before. Gundogan was doing it at Man City. It's not uncommon for it to happen, but ideally your last line of defence in midfield needs to be someone physically strong, like your Fabinhos, like your Rodris. N'Golo Kante wasn't the tallest player, but he could knock someone off the ball quite easily. Casemiro is another example. And I don't think McAllister really fits that bill, whereas Kone, as I've just said before, I don't think we need someone who's going to develop into a great player just yet. But I would have rather had that physicality of someone like him over McAllister in that Brighton game, where they're constantly attacking and you need as many people to defend as possible in those scenarios, not a centre mid or a central attacking mid who's going to have to track back and try and put in a tackle, because it left us exposed. And having someone as tall as Kone and as strong as Kone maybe would have just provided a bit of stability in the back line. Maybe the goals wouldn't have happened because the players wouldn't have been panicked. The first goal in particular, Van Dijk tries to pass it to McAllister, didn't work. So maybe someone a bit deeper, a bit stronger, more composed defensively would have been a better option than someone like McAllister.
Now, one of the things that really shocked me about Manu Kone is his aerial win percentage is 25%, putting him in the bottom 4% of midfielders. So for someone that's 6'4", that's really quite a shocking statistic. And I think in the Premier League, Trent is really down there for aerials one. It's one of his weaker areas. So to have a DM who probably covers that position as well be so bad in the aerial competition. Is that another reason why it's probably not a Liverpool type signing?
I don't know, to be honest, because I think for it's not unheard of, especially coming out of the Bundesliga. It seems to be sort of this sort of weird trend. I mean, you have Endo, who's surprisingly good at it in a relegation side, and the one outlier I'd say is that we signed Szoboszlai, who at 6'1" was winning no aerial duels whatsoever, notably terrible at aerial duels. He was, great at set piece situations, but he couldn't get on the end of them, and he had no goal scoring threat in the box because he, for some reason, just couldn't jump. And it's not unheard of for these pretty tall players from the Bundesliga to not be able to get in the air at the right time and utilize their height. So I think if you can turn Szoboszlai around, who, by contrast, in the Premier League has not been losing all of his aerial duels. So if you probably pulled up the percentage, which I can't right now, I imagine he's won a great deal more than he did in Germany. So I don't think it bars him entirely from being a Liverpool signing, but it definitely would have been a concern if he just couldn't get over it, which would be a surprise considering his stature. It's something you could probably fix with him, but maybe he didn't need to, because I think he plays more as an 8 these days, doesn't he, instead of a 6?
Yeah, Szoboszlai's 37.9% aerial duels won puts him in the just over the 50% mark for midfielders, 66% won, which, again, it's not bad, but for someone over 6 foot,
yeah,
you probably expect that to be a bit higher.
Is that this season?
So, for the last 365 days.
Fair enough. Yeah.
That's how the stats come from FBref. Kone is 6'1". I thought it was 6'4", but I will take your word for it, Paul. Or maybe it's Thuram that's 6'4".
He's 6'4" as well.
Say then, yeah.
It's like Brothers of Destruction, isn't it? Mighty Ducks, the two big ones coming together for fun. If you've not seen that film, you won't get that.
Are we not doing a bit of a disservice just slightly to the German league? And I get completely where you're coming from with a lot of players do struggle when coming from that league. But if you look at some of the players who have come from it, there are great players from that league. Do you think we are maybe doing it a bit of a disservice by saying it's a bit not a much easier league, but it's a lesser league? Obviously, the Prem's the hardest league in the world, but you still get a lot of really talented players who have come from Germany over to England.
I think it depends on the type of player and the stats that you've got. So, for example, let's look at Harry Kane. So far, he's played 7 matches in the Bundesliga, got 8 goals. That is way above his career average. So whilst we're talking,
Haaland's the same, yeah.
While we're talking about players and the difference in the league, we may be talking about a 5% difference.
Yeah.
5% at the top 1% of world football is huge. So I think there is probably a really fair chance that you could get someone from a mid-table German side and they have a real big impact in a mid-table Premier League side. But when you're talking about the top 1% of the top 1%, the Champions League and the Champions League, there is still that step up, because we're in a world where in certain games in Germany, there will be easier games. There are some teams that are not great. Same for Serie A, same for Ligue 1, and probably the same for the Premier League this year. City's dominance is creating that sort of championship culture where the 3 teams coming up really are off it. So, I think it's a struggle for some. And I think if, let's say, for example, it was, and this is where it gets really interesting for me, where I think Liverpool fans sometimes were a bit spoiled. I've said on this stream thousands of times I would have taken James Ward-Prowse in an instant.
Yeah.
In an instant. Because I think he could have been a reserve for Trent in every way possible, because he can pass like him and he's a great midfielder. But everyone was like, no, we shouldn't be getting a James Ward-Prowse to Liverpool. Now, in essence, we've gone and bought a James Ward-Prowse of Germany. A defensive midfielder, someone who functions in the lower half of the league, a Southampton-level club. We've brought them in. And I think there's a little bit of snobbery towards that player at this moment in time, going, well, he shouldn't be coming to Liverpool. Why? All right, look at what Ward-Prowse is doing at West Ham. Look at what players can do in the right system. And I think I agree there's some level of snobbery towards Germany and saying like, oh, they wouldn't be good enough, but I think it varies. And I think you've got to look on it on a case-by-case basis. Timo Werner should have come to the Premier League and destroyed it. Everything was built for his game, but unfortunately, he went to Chelsea. And they destroy strikers pretty much regularly. So a question for Nam and for chat. We're coming towards January now. You've got Andre, you've got Kone. You can have one. Who are you going for? So put it in the chat. Let us know which one would you go for out of Andre or Kone. Then I'll let you start off. Which one do you think is more a Liverpool player, an imposing big defensive midfielder, or an all-action, aggressive, probably gets sent off about 3 times a season Brazilian?
Oh, it's a good question. I think, like I say, the injury concerns with Kone are present, and you don't want that to be a major factor. But it sort of has to be in consideration. Not too sure of Andre's injury history, to be honest. I think both of them are really young as well. That's pretty notable as well. So there's not much experience between them. I'd probably be leaning more towards Andre, if I'm honest. And I think it's because he reminds me a little bit of Thiago as well, just a bit. And I think there's something to be said about how much Thiago's affected our team, and having someone like that who plays a little bit deeper, sort of like say all action. I think I would prefer that than the sort of 6'4", 8, possibly could be a 6 type we seem to be going for, because we tried it with Thuram, we tried it with Kone apparently, or we're going to, and now we brought Gravenberch in, who sort of seems to be fitting the same mold, around 6'4", really long guy who's got really good sort of take on percentages and could be a defensive monster if guided towards that path. And I think if we've got Gravenberch now for the price we got him at, which is looking like a steal more and more, I think Andre should be the person who comes in rather than Kone. But it's a really interesting question, I guess.
Lewis?
Oh, it is quite difficult because I know I kind of want to say Andre, but from what I've seen, Andre isn't your out-and-out defensive type player. And,
No.
The comments, everyone's right in saying he is very versatile. But if we wanted someone who was good on the ball and beating players but was aggressive, we'd just keep McAllister at CDM. I would rather Andre, but purely for the fact of like Kone's injuries, like Aim said, they are a concern. And I also think as well that from what you said on the stats, he reminds me a little bit of when we signed Grujic, and we thought he was going to be this tall, imposing player who's going to win balls in the air, in the middle of the park, and he's going to be great on the ball, getting forward and defensively solid. And it just didn't work. He didn't seem to fit the system, and Fabinho was good at getting forward, but he was a bit of a brick wall. I think Andre is still the way to go, but there is definitely that high chance of he's not physically strong. He's just going to be really aggressive, and it could backfire at times, and we could see him sent off a lot. We could be seeing like another Lucas Leiva where, he's not the greatest defender in the world, but because he's so aggressive and so good at getting at players that he's going to commit about 5 fouls a game, and eventually he's going to get sent off more often than not. So, I'd still stick with him because of the fitness concerns from Kone, but I'm not overly sold on Andre coming in and being this out and out. He's going at number 6. I see him venturing a bit further up the pitch and us maybe looking for another solution in midfield. I see Andre more as the sort of Thiago replacement when he leaves in the summer, not just stick him as the number 6 and let him defend, because I just don't think that's what his role is going to be.
Makes sense. I didn't think Lucas got that many red cards.
He got so many, he had a tendency to make a rash tackle. Like, it wasn't red cards, it was just he'd get so many yellows that eventually it'd sort of add up, and even if he knew he wasn't going to get the ball, he'd still lunge in. I think he's in like the top 10 tacklers in Premier League history or something like that, because he was just so
second behind Gareth Barry, isn't he, for successful tackles?
So he'd constantly try and win it, and even if he knew he wasn't going to get them, he'd do like the Diogo Jota tackle against Spurs, the second yellow card, and I think Andre might be that type of player. Maybe not physically strong and out defensive, but he'll run his heart out, and I think that's what Klopp would want ideally.
20% of games you get a yellow card. Look at that. Quick maths. Lucas, that is. In modern Premier League, that probably is about 40% of games, to be completely honest.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, for Liverpool now, it's probably a red card every time, because you're not allowed to tackle players if you're a Liverpool player nowadays.
No, can't look at anyone funny or say anything.
I'm not spicy about it at all. I think for me, to answer the question, I would I think I'm more on the Andre side of things than I probably am the Kone, because I think the other two midfielders are going to be Gravenberch and Szoboszlai, and the way that we've been playing almost a two defensive midfielders on a rotation probably lets one of those bigger players come in. So I'd probably be more on Andre, and I think we've seen. I don't think statistically we've really got the best of Andre at the moment, because he started as a 9, then he moved to a 10, then he moved to an 8, and now he's moved to a 6. I think he's still learning his position, but any player who is good enough to get into the Brazil national team is obviously a good, high-quality player, and someone that they've got a lot of potential in. And I think it would be a good opportunity to have an up-and-coming developing player who can help us control games. So yeah, I'm pretty much on that. There's a couple of people that are having, McAllister. Each time I see McAllister start as a 6, it's quite frustrating to use a Ferrari as a tractor. There's a couple of people that, it's frustrating to see McAllister out of position. Naim, what are you thinking about McAllister's position? Do you think he's doing all right? I think he's played quite well. But in the second half against Brighton, when he was half-turning with Gravenberch and Szoboszlai, I think we saw a completely different player. I just don't think we've got a chance to see him as a player yet.
I think, honestly, I don't mind it at all. I've come on here and I've said before that the search for a 6, I've come round to the idea that we probably need one to win things, quite frankly. And, even though we have the likes of Endo, we need sort of a starting one. And it's something I'm coming around to because of how we've played recently, where I quite liked the idea of having this floating midfield where everyone did a bit of everything. Someone would drop much deeper, and whether it was because of the red cards or whatever, but quite frankly, every single game, McAllister wasn't in the 6 all the time. And playing from deep, but then being allowed to move around as other players drop in for that area behind him, I thought was quite an elegant solution to having no 6. I've obviously seeing that it does leave open the idea that we need someone at the back, and then he'll be better utilized as an 8, sort of pushing forward into the left spaces like Jones does. But it's I don't think he's as much wasted there as people think. It is quite frustrating, as you say, to use a Ferrari as a tractor. But, Lamborghini started as a tractor company. Read into that what you will. But he's an industrious guy, and we've seen that from him. So whereas before, you might have thought that he's going to be this quite of a nimble, dainty sort of 8 pushing into the left half spaces and do the sort of Curtis Jones role, he's proven himself to be sort of a really, quite rush-in sort of defender at times. He's jumped into challenges. He's really got himself involved in the midfield. So I don't see it as quite wasted. I just see it as almost adding a string to his bow. But yeah, I think a 6 would be beneficial, because then we can just move him into the left 8. So yeah, I suppose reading into that way you will.
I think, Lewis, one of the things that I'm seeing is McAllister needs Curtis Jones. Curtis Jones is playing that Gini Wijnaldum role, isn't he, where he's putting his body in between the ball and the player, and I think he's helping quite a lot. I also think there's an element where Gomez coming into that, as much as I hate Gomez coming into the right, defensive midfielder position, because it's completely unnatural. I think from a defensive positioning perspective, it helps McAllister. And I think Harvey Elliott is more an attacking midfielder than he is a rotational defensive midfielder. And I think that became apparent against Brighton for me. What about you?
Yeah, I agree with Jones is showing heart whenever he plays now. Even in that Tottenham game, he was arguably the best player when he was on the pitch. He goes into tackles sometimes a bit hard, clearly, but he plays the way I think Klopp would want any of his players to play, and the Wijnaldum comparison's really, really good. I was on a show recently, and I said Gravenberch should be Wijnaldum, and everyone said no, Curtis Jones is the next Wijnaldum, the way he plays, and it's so similar looking at it. And I feel like if you're going to play McAllister in that number 6, you need someone else who's going to be able to support him defensively, and Jones is that player because he tracks back, and I'd rather have 2 players who are. I know what I'm trying to say, but I can't. You can either have one out-and-out defensive midfielder, or you can have 2 players who are going to track back, who are good at defending. And I'd rather have the 2 players who I know can tackle than one just out-and-out CDM who we have to rely on to defend. And I think that happened with Fabinho sometimes last season. Gomez, when he comes into that defensive midfield role, he's not good on the ball, really. I mean, whereas Trent is, we've seen him pass, we've seen that he's calm under pressure. Gomez just is not that type of player. He's a centre-back who's having to play every other position other than centre-back. So I agree. I think we need Jones more this season than we ever have just because of his work ethic. He plays like he's from Liverpool. He's obviously, I know he is, but he plays with such desire and heart to win the ball back, and that only helps the midfield, especially McAllister.
Yeah, I think Paul Lindo, he plays like a fan, Jones, for me.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to move on to another story, which is the on-again, off-again relationship with Hincapie. Fabrizio Romano saying that, we're not put off by the 50 million price tags, we're yet to hold direct talks or negotiations, but we've Xabi Alonso's at Bayer Leverkusen, so we've already got a decent relationship with the manager. They've won 10 on the bounce. Left centre back Virgil van Dijk's been hot and cold, let's say. I think he's been Virgil level, and then I think he's been general Premier League defender level, good Premier League defender level. I wouldn't necessarily say he's been bad, but for Virgil, he's been bad. Do you think this is the type of left centre-back that we should have been getting before the season started? And also, do you think there's anything to these rumours? No direct conversations, no direct negotiations, but, Romano knows that we're watching him.
I think, I think he should have been brought in. That I was hoping for a defensive signing. And obviously, we've seen the whole Gerald Kwanzaa situation. It's refreshing to see sort of a 20-year-old player come through the youth academy and bossing first-team football like he is. And that's great that we've got sort of, that option there. But I think we definitely should have been bringing in another defensive option like Pierre Hincapie, because obviously he can play left back as well, and just the weakness down that left hand side is so apparent. Because Virgil, I do agree with you on some of that. He's been, it's been a sort of varying performance. Obviously, he made that rash tackle against Newcastle, but generally, I've been massively impressed with how he's stepped up to the players' captain this season. So I think if he's there to start, I've got no problem with that. Unfortunately, on a rotational basis, if you're moving Matip over or Gomez left centre back like we did that one game, he was great there, but it's not a sustainable thing. So if you could have someone like Pierre Hincapie, that would be great, because then also we have been playing this sort of inverted fullback role with the 3-2-2-3 thing again. It's not been so much of a problem as it was last season with Robertson flying up and down the left hand side, but if you were going to play that more seriously, he could also be an option there, or if Robertson got injured. So, I think he's an option that we should have brought in. He's a great player. He's obviously now back in the side after he was suspended at the start of the season. So, great to see him back playing games again. One thing I will say, one off-putting thing about him that people might have missed, he's got the same agent as one particular man called Caicedo. So I don't want to deal with that guy again. I mean, if it's a situation where we're paying 50 million for him, and then there's all of a sudden some massive problems with Chelsea, I do not want to go through the pain of seeing another Ecuadorian go to them by the hands of that guy. So yeah, agent issues aside, he really should be coming to Liverpool, especially if we're not perturbed by the price tag.
Yeah, I think it's the agent's been doing a bit of backtracking in the media, hasn't he, Lou? You know, sort of going, well, we've made this commitment, we've made this, we've done this, we've done the other. Therefore, we couldn't get out. Like, it makes me think that there may be some level of interest in Hincapie just because he's trying to appease Liverpool fans for no other reason than something. And we're not signing Caicedo because we're not going to knock on Chelsea's door and go, fancy giving us for 100 odd mil after his performances. So there's got to be a reason why he's trying to sort of, level the playing field a little bit.
I kind of agree with the whole we don't want to deal with him because of the agent thing, but in the same breath, Caicedo's agent's come out recently and said, look, going to Chelsea might have been a bit of a mistake. Maybe he wants Hincapie to go to a better club. He's, if you look at us compared to Chelsea, we've done much better. Maybe he's trying to push for him to get the move that Caicedo should have done to help his career. The main concern is the better Bayer Leverkusen do this season, the more the price tag goes up. So I agree, if we were going to sign him, we should have maybe done it in the summer just gone, because his value could go up 30, 40 million, depending how well he does this season. Like you said, Van Dijk, I think Van Dijk's legs are starting to go a bit. He's one of those defenders that he's brilliant. He might be doing like what John Terry did when his legs started to go, and his defensive knowledge is what's keeping him in that top percentile of defenders. But physically, you can see him slowing down. He's not able to keep up with attackers the same way he used to. I think the injury has had a big effect. Hincapie looks outstanding physically. He's won more tackles, interceptions, and blocks than Van Dijk. Obviously, it's in the German league, which has been getting a lot of sticks. People made that discussion, but I think that he's playing against tough teams. He physically looks good. He's a good age. I think if you get someone that age with that ability who's in a team doing this well for 50 million from potentially the manager who's going to take over when Klopp leaves, that's a win-win situation. And when Klopp does leave, he'll be in his prime or there or thereabouts. So,
he's never leaving.
He's never leaving. I don't want him to. Stay forever.
Stay forever. Now, 12th man, again, he's confused. Have we looked at Virgil's numbers, naming other centre-backs, similar aerial duels? Now, I haven't looked at particular individual statistics, but when you look at things like their who scored average rating and stuff like that, he's on an average of 7.11. You use people like Saliba and Cristiano Romeo, they're slightly higher. Now, I'm not saying, and I think this is where sometimes people hear but don't listen, which is, I'm not saying Virgil is at that level. I'm saying his bad performances are putting him at their level, and his Virgil performances are above that level. We have to remember what we're talking about is a player who is, at a point, probably the best player in the world. Should have won it. Didn't, but should have won it. So that's the level. Not average centre-back level. Not average Premier League centre-back level. Now, I think he's able to get to that level in his mind at times, and I think I agree with what Lewis said. Sometimes he's a little bit slower and he's off the pace. He should still be better than all the other Premier League centre-backs, even with no pace. Thiago Silva's got it all in his head. What are you thinking on Virgil? Are you what sort of level are you putting him in now?
I think he's been brilliant at the start of the campaign. I think I have no concerns about Van Dijk right now. I think Virgil, he's gotten off to a great start as captain. Besides the rash sort of challenge on Isak, I haven't seen much of a problem with him.
By the way, you still don't think it's a red card?
I think that's definitely a red card. I said it immediately. I think because it's just, for me, that's clear there's going to be a goal scoring opportunity. It's unfortunate. It's really not a rash challenge, but it stopped a goal scoring opportunity, especially with someone like Isak who's going to bury it if he gets past him. Yeah. It's unfortunate that he's been put in that position, and you can argue sort of where that came from team wise, but he's been calm, composed. He's always been a vocal player, so it makes perfect sense that he's captain. I don't even see the whole legs going argument, apart from obviously, the fact that his leg got blown out a few years ago. He's still got that sixth gear that he can fly down the pitch if he needs to. We've done a great job of controlling defensively because we concede first a lot. But I think what was the statistic before the Brighton game that we hadn't conceded after the 42nd minute for like a good few games. It's I don't see his legs going. I still rate him as one of, if not the best centre back in the Prem, and I'm sure a lot of people share that opinion. I'm not too concerned. Someone said in the chat, would someone like Hincapie be third or fourth choice till he leaves? I don't think so, because if someone like Kwanzaa's breaking into the team at 20 years old, even without the suspension, there's a place for Pierre Hincapie, quite frankly, because Liverpool should be competing in as many competitions as possible. If you wind back to 21-22, even with the, quite frankly, shocking depth we had all over the field, we were challenging for every single trophy we could possibly get our hands on. And if we want to continue doing that, which obviously we do, people like Hincapie could be crucial playing in multiple positions, and he would never be third or fourth choice because, quite frankly, the hierarchy in today's Liverpool means nothing, apparently, because we've got Gomez and Kwanzaa playing centre-back regularly somehow. So I think Hincapie would have no issue breaking into the squad in one way or another.
I mean, yeah. To me, Gomez is a centre-back, but
he started as full-back.
I know, but I don't think that just highlights his weaknesses for me when he plays right-back. Because I don't think he's good one-on-one on the wing. I think that's where he's exposed. He's quick. Don't get me wrong, Gomez is probably one of the quickest centre-backs in the Premier League, but yeah, he
looks rigid, like he looks stiff.
Yeah.
Not as stiff as when he moves into defensive midfielder, by the way. Then he looks really stiff for me.
No.
He's got a wicked cross, that's about it. But anyway, so one of the questions Zia asked is the question you guys should be asking, is Kwanzaa better than whatever's available? So, do you sign Hincapie to play as a left centre-back, potentially left-back, because he has played games at left-back, so that's like cost-ass backup, and spend 50 million on that? Or do you spend it elsewhere? Lewis?
Well, this is the thing. We don't know if Matip's going to extend his contract. There's talks of it. But there was also talks of Milner and Firmino extending. They didn't happen, so we don't know that one. Van Dijk, still love Van Dijk. Still think he's one of the best. But as I say, he's not getting any younger. Gomez isn't looking. He's not a set centre back at the moment. He should be playing in a centre back, but he's not. I think Kwanzaa has stepped up massively, and he's learning from some of the best centre backs in the league or in the world, even in like Van Dijk and Konate. But I do think with all the uncertainty around the defence and a backline that is aging, I do think we need to bring someone else in. We need depth, especially if we're going to be losing one, potentially two players in that backline. If Gomez was to leave and Matip was to leave, we don't want to be in a situation where Van Dijk gets another injury and then another centre-back gets an injury and we're having to play Reece Williams and Nat Phillips in centre-back again. The more depth, the better. Like Am said before, the comment where it was, would he be third, fourth choice centre-back? Don't think he would be. Like I said, if Kwanzaa's getting into this team, there's no reason he can't. We still need depth. We've got an uncertain back line at times, and if players are leaving, I see no reason not to go in for him, even with Kwanzaa in the team.
So, question for the chat and for you guys, because I see probably three areas where we may be about to spend some money. This is what we were talking about, which is you've got your Jurgen, you've got, I don't know, you can have 75 million. Why not? Let's just throw a cursory amount. Because you don't have to tell me a player. But you've got 75 million pounds. So you can sign one player. Do you sign a backup right back? Because you've got Gomez playing there at the moment, but he's really a centre back. Do you sign a defensive midfielder, or do you sign a left centre back? If you're prioritising for what's going to win you the league, what do you sign first, second, and third? So your options are left centre back, defensive midfielder, right back, reserve right back. What order do you do it? Now, Zia said DM. Naim, what process are you going with this?
I think
What
left
order?
centre back. Left centre back first. I'd probably say right back and then DM at the bottom, because when I'm looking at the squad now, I sort of take note of where we have depth and where we don't. Up front, we've probably got one of, if not the best attacking depth in the league. It's ridiculous. Midfield is definitely getting there. Curtis Jones, Bajcetic, Harvey Elliott, and then the three we've signed. And you go, wow, okay, for the first time we've got 5 really good options in midfield. And then you look at the back and you think, okay, Gomez can play right back. Konate keeps moving over into the right areas and he's looking pretty strong as a no-nonsense kind of player. Trent's obviously generational. And then you look on the left side of things, we've got Costas Tsimikas, Robertson and Van Dijk, and there's no one who plays left centre-back there, naturally anyway. I'd see as clear choice, you fill the gap that's clearly there. Van Dijk got suspended for a game and we were playing Gomez left centre-back. That's the sort of what we went into. You should have someone there who's ready to fill that role.
Lewis?
So
I'm not saying DM first, not left centre back first.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what said. I think there is rationale to it. I just look at, I think CDM is the position that everyone's crying out the most for at the moment. If McAllister's having to play there and he's not, that's not his preferred position. If Endo's not playing the way he should be, or a lot of people want him to, clearly that's the big gap that's being noticed the most. I'd say defensive midfielder first. I'd say right back second, purely because when Trent wasn't in the team, obviously Gomez plays there sometimes, but we've had to put Curtis Jones there for a game. We've had to put Bajcetic there for a game. If there's a position like that where we're having to experiment and try midfielders in a position they've never played in before in a game, clearly there's a problem there and it needs to be addressed. Whereas, like you say, Gomez is naturally a centre-back. If Van Dijk's not in the team, and then Gomez comes in as that backup centre-back, he's playing in the position that he's meant to be playing in. So there's depth there. We have options. Whereas right back, if Trent's gone, we're playing someone who's not naturally a right back in that position, or we're having to move midfielders there. So I think DM, right back, left centre-back in that order for me personally.
DM, right back, left centre-back. Was that?
Yeah, DM, right back, left centre-back.
I think I'm with you, but we're going to move on to the next point, because this really sort of starts to bring up the questions of, well, we've got Thiago and we've got Stefan Bajcetic to come back, both of which can potentially play what McAllister's playing, because we've seen Thiago play exactly the same role that McAllister's playing at the moment, which is that linchpin sort of midfielder. Bajcetic is seen as an important player for Liverpool, but there's a potential of a loan move being discussed at the moment, because it's just the consistency of games and getting him back into the groove of things and getting him back up to speed. If, let's say we signed a DM in January, would you loan him, or do you think he needs game time? Naim?
I'd hold on to that kid as hard as we possibly could, to be honest with you, because it's with the loan move, it's not the end of the world by any means. Developing a talent like that, you wouldn't, at the end of the day, our cup runneth over, unfortunately, for the first time. Well, fortunately, for the first time in midfield. We've got so many options that it's unfortunate for him, because he had such a breakout season last season when we didn't, that now that we do, he's sort of been left by the wayside. And that's partly because these midfielders are on such good form, or were at the start of the season, maybe sort of breaking down a little bit in the last game, but are on such form. How do you take any of them out of the squad? If McAllister's sort of doing so well, lifting one over for Nunez, and obviously Szoboszlai's been amazing. And Jones is, I don't know if anyone's watched like the Tifo IRL video. There's an article on One Football as well, where people are breaking down how statistically and sort of even with the eye test, you can see he just makes everyone around him better. these midfielders, because they're on such good form, you can't take any of them out. But Bajcetic is right there underneath them. Like, quite frankly, he is in the cups as well when the FA Cup got started and when the Carabao sort of like kicks off to maybe a more challenging degree. These sort of players become really, really important. Sending him out on loan doesn't help us really because, yeah, it'll develop him, but he's right there right now. If he's good enough, he's old enough. And he could break in, as he did last season, to the squad right now. So I would have... it wouldn't be the end of the world if he got loaned out, but I really want to hold on to a talent like that because if he got injured at Preston, like what do you say about that? It's a massive issue. He needs to be carefully managed, considering the play style he plays in, the sort of Thiago swinging hips, shoulder drop thing where he could be injuring like he did his adductor, the groin injury. And there's probably more of that to come if he's not carefully managed. If he's playing in, relegation sides or championship sides, there's a very real possibility he blows his legs off and it's the end of the world for what could be a massive talent. So I think cards close to the chest on this one.
Are you against it, Lewis? I think it depends on the side, doesn't it? That's the thing for me. I think it depends who it is. Because let's say, for example, a Leicester who are top of the Championship at the moment, it could work wonders with Dewsbury Hall and how they're attacking and their play and stuff like that. Whereas if you throw him into, let's say, a Burnley who are playing the football that probably he wants to play, but they're getting steamrolled by players at the moment, and it probably puts his body under a lot of stress. Does it depend on the club, or do you think, he stays, he trains, he learns, and if he doesn't develop into the first team next year, maybe he gets a year away when we know his body's strong and ready?
Yeah, I completely agree with what Ian said. I think the best place for him to learn how we play is with us. And we've seen so many players in the past for us who look like they're going to be great, who go out on loan, like Shea Ojo, Tyler Morton, Reece Williams, all these players who have gone out on loan and because they don't perform where they are or because they're just not really, who's to say we don't loan Bajcetic out? Our CDM position gets worse and worse. It's clear that position needs addressing. We then sign someone in the summer for big money. He's not going to get in the team, and it's just a waste of a talent who, out and out defensively, he might not be the greatest player, but on the ball, he's so good. He's so good at getting forward. He's great on the turn. He's full of energy, young. I think the best place for him to learn, similar to the Ben Doak but the Ben Doak situation, keep him in the team, keep him there and thereabouts those players who he's going to learn off, like your Thiago, who's a fantastic passer of the ball, your McAllister's just oversized, and get them integrated into the team. When we're struggling for depth in that position, and we've got a player who's as versatile as Bajcetic, loaning him out, which might do him wonders if you went to someone like a Brighton, which one of the comments said, or like a Leicester, that would do wonders for him. But I feel like with the amount of games we've got, we're still in 4 competitions, we're going for titles and trophies. He's going to get game time and he's going to be learning from the best players. And when we lose players in the summer, like Thiago, more than likely, he's going to have a strong case to fill that role. And I just think keeping him around is the best thing to do, to be honest.
It worked for Phil Foden, didn't it? They just kept him around. He learned. Yeah. They were like, he needs games. Yeah. And they kept saying, no, he's learning. I guess you're training with the best players every day. And right, this season, we've got a brand new midfield unit who are going to be potentially together for the next 5 years. You kind of want him to be part of that every day. Now, as Paul said, it's supersized coffee. No, this is my normal size coffee. It's just nearer to the camera. Due to where I bring it. So no, it's not a supersized coffee mug. It's relatively big. It holds enough coffee for me to get through a stream. Now, we're going to move on to the final story. And the final story is reference to Mo Salah, Saudi Pro League Director of Football. I'm going to call it football then, but you know what I mean. Michael Emenalo said, Mo is always welcome, but no one is pressured or forced to come. If someone wants to come, there's an opportunity. We'd be very happy to have him. Mo is my personal favourite. On overpaying, Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. European clubs might think we paid too much, and we might think we got exactly what we need. We don't tell clubs who they should choose. We work with them to make sure the money is spent in the right way.
Oh, God.
I mean, I don't think, Naim, that is any clearer than, oh my God, I really want to sign Mo Salah and I will give you a boatload of cash because we see the value in having probably the biggest name in Muslim football playing in our league. That's a pretty clear message to me. What's he say to you?
I mean, yeah, I'd agree. It's no coincidence they're going for Salah. Obviously, is among the best in the world. And I'm sure he would be open to a sort of a move to that region as well, considering the religious influence. You know, people like Mane as well. They've been brought in by not only the money, but by that sort of area that's really personal to them, and you can understand that. So from both sides, it's the obvious move for a league that has so much money in it, that they can afford to make a move for someone like that at an egregious price. Well, I say egregious, he's worth all the money in the world to us, but for sort of outside of the Saudi league, no one's going to sort of bother buying Salah, even if he's worth that money. Another competitive side would probably abstain from paying that much. They like I say, it's clearly a calculated move, and it's one that begrudgingly makes sense for all parties involved, especially if it's a massive boatload of money for Liverpool, where we can put that money to good use, or I suppose not. It's I'm supportive of it at the right time. I wouldn't say right now. I obviously wouldn't say right now, and I'm not even sure next season. But it's one to weigh up. But like you say, yeah, the influence is very, very clear.
Now, Paul makes a great point. We can sign Andre, Pedro Neto, and Hincapie for the Salah money. The problem with this is you could put all three of them on the pitch, and play 13 players against 11, and they probably wouldn't have the impact Salah has in our starting 11. Now, I've said on this stream countless times, I think he's going end of the season. I think this is his last year with us. I think he's going to go, but I wish they'd shut up, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, that it's a great point that we could use the money, but if you refer back to 13-14 season, Tottenham sold Bale. They then brought in Soldado, Soldado, Paulinho. They signed all these players, and I think of that, Eriksen was the only one who performed. So just because you sign a lot of players with the money doesn't mean it's going to look at Chelsea. Salah is so underappreciated, and the impact he has both on and off the pitch is just, it can't be overstated. I've said a million times before, he brings in so much money to the club from that demographic of that part of the world. And this whole, I'd be happy if he went to Saudi more than I would if he went to like a Barcelona or a Real Madrid. I think that part, if he goes to the Saudi league, it's sort of, it doesn't affect us kind of thing. And I'd rather that, because the thought of Salah playing against us would break my heart. He's well within his right to decide if that's the next step for that amount of money as well. Like, like you say, all parties would win. I just, when we're currently going through this whole Liverpool 2.0, we've just got to a bit of consistency where the team's playing great. I think if you then take the best player from the team out, we could end up in a situation like we did last season again, and we'd have to go through a whole process to try and replace him. And for Saudi to say, no pressure. It's like that bit in films where the boss is trying to hire someone and they go, there's no pressure, it's your choice. And then they slide a piece of paper with like £2 million written on it or something. And, it's just that kind of thing. And I do think it'll be the next step. I wish it wouldn't. I wish we keep Salah forever, but it just seems inevitable at this point. And I'd be against just spending all the money on 3, 4, 5 players similar to Chelsea and Tottenham did. It just doesn't seem to work, to be honest.
Now, Paul's point's interesting, where we had the same argument with Coutinho. If we lose him, we lose our structure. There wasn't really many players in world football playing that attacking midfielder role that Coutinho was playing. But then we went and used the money to bring in Van Dijk, to bring in Alisson, and take our team to the next level. I can't think of many players that we could bring in that could do Salah's numbers. I don't think anyone can, but we can probably use the money to level us up in other areas. It's a strange situation, isn't it? Knowing that you've got a league that really want your player. You know the player's going to want to go there at some point. Part of me thinks we may get him for another 2 years, because why put all this effort to get us back in the Champions League and not play in the new Champions League format? So we may get him for another 2 years, and he may go to Saudi the year after. What do you think?
I think I would have him for another 2 years easily. I think he's one of those players who's going to do it like Messi and Ronaldo does, in the same way that the longevity that someone like Salah has is on. It's indisputable. I think it's going to be a situation where, because it's the same with Van Dijk, I think these guys are so good and so rigid with their ability to keep themselves fit and firing, that they're the kind of players who go till they're 35 and beyond. So those two, especially Salah, I would have for as long as we can have them, quite frankly. But it's like you say, the new champions, getting us back into the Champions League place, keeping Liverpool where they should be would be an alluring prospect for him. And then there's the whole Coutinho thing where you're weighing it up. I think it's strikingly similar to the Coutinho situation, because if you think about what happened after Coutinho, there was this sort of revolutionary move towards what we knew as Liverpool then, where it was, the likes of Van Dijk and Alisson transformed the side. And now we've got this whole Liverpool 2.0 situation going on, where we're moving towards a new style of play. We're moving towards new players who are creative and hardworking at the same time, and there's no compromise anywhere the pitch, it seems, to the way we're going. So they're strikingly similar situations, and if you bought the right players, we might look back and go, "Thank God we sold them," or at least there was a positive or something. But me personally, all the money in the world can pry him away from me. It's literally he's irreplaceable at the fundamental level of it, and whether that money would be better spent elsewhere in the squad is not a debate I'm really willing to have, to be honest. I think he is a brilliant talent, obviously.
Completely agree.
Yeah, it's Liverpool legend, guaranteed. And I am comfortable with if Salah wants to go and decides that that's his path, I get it. I just want him to stay in the new Champions League format, play the new Champions League format with Liverpool. Then, you'll be 33, so you'll have 3 years in Saudi. Benzema's 35, and there's no chance Salah's not going to be able to perform at that level for that duration. So for me, it just makes sense. But at the same time, I can understand it. You can't discredit the work and the effort and everything that he's put in for the club. And you see it, in a lot of chat, people saying, Salah deserves the right to make his decision and stuff like that. And I don't think he'd do us dirty in the fee or anything like that. So, yeah, it's one of those situations. Now, if you are new here, please like and subscribe to the channel. As Jamie says, we are 2 more away from 25 likes, so please make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. I've completely forgot to say that for the entire stream, because I have been doing different videos all day for work, and I've completely forgot. So please subscribe to the channel. It's an LFC fan channel. We go live every day at 7:30. We talk about all the news that's coming out on the Liverpool LFC Transfer Room YouTube. So make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. Now, final question for everyone in the chat and for the guys is, Konate says his next career goal is to become better than Virgil van Dijk. tall order, you know, considering who Virgil was. But remember how late Virgil really sort of came through. Really came through to that sort of top tier, you know, it was Celtic, Southampton, then to us. Can Konate do it? Question for the chat. Naeem, we'll start with you. Can Konate get up to that level? Can he get up to that imposing, controlling, dominating centre-back?
You know what? I'd ask better in what way, I guess, because quite frankly, Konate is better at certain things than Van Dijk is right now. And it's because Van Dijk is obviously, like I said earlier, I rate him as the best centre-back in the league, or at the very least, you know, sort of top 3. Konate has been one of the most impressive sort of duelists, like this sort of clatter into people, make sure no one's getting past him. Defenders I've seen in a while, because he was playing that sort of moving over to the right role, and he played it so brilliantly, you know, with his pace and physicality. So I would say better in what way? Whether he can become a controller of play, where he's delaying the attack and then moving in at the opportune time and playing these almost like mind-bending defensive games with people where it looks like no one can possibly get past him. That remains to be seen. I think that for what he is right now, he is becoming sort of the best version of that. And I'd like to see him continue down that path. I don't know if I want him to become a Virgil van Dijk type necessarily, but if he was, if he honed the skills he clearly and presently has, he's a world beater in a few years, if he's not now. So once again, it's like, what way does he want to play? If he wants to convert to how Van Dijk controls games, it's questionable whether he'd be able to ever get up to the level that Van Dijk was so naturally able to achieve, even if it was later on. But right now, if he honed in on what he's so good at already, then yeah, sure, he could be better in that manner than Van Dijk is. But it's an interesting question regarding how those style of play fit into the team.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't see his distribution at Van Dijk level, but I see him as more combative. Yeah, I think he enjoys the fight a little bit more, I think. And I'm hoping he keeps his pace from not for anything other than I think he's probably one of the fastest centre-backs in the Premier League. Yeah. Probably the fastest centre-back in the Premier League. He's so rapid, and I think it just no one can then get an advantage on him. What do you think, Lewis? Do you think he can get up there? Do you think he can be? Obviously, he's not going to be a Virgil van Dijk defender, but is he going to be France's number 1 defender?
He's definitely worth a shout. Ibrahima Konate, Varane, the likes aren't doing brilliant, so he's definitely got a chance of it. With regards to the Van Dijk comparisons, I think I agree. I think if he perfects what he's already great at, he'll be a different type of centre back, but he could be just as good as Van Dijk, just in a different sense. I always picture him as the sweeper in that back line. Van Dijk's a bit more of the commander, and he'll tell people where to be. He's positionally aware, whereas Konate is the no nonsense, right? Slide in, get that ball, get rid of it. And I don't know about you, I personally cannot think of a better slide tackler of the ball. He's so good at it. He's outstanding whenever he dives in for it. I don't think he's meant to be a ball playing centre back. I think he is just an out and out physical intimidator at the back. He's brilliant in a tackle, physically very strong, and he could reach Van Dijk level or even surpass him, which would be near impossible because Van Dijk is one of the best centre backs I've ever seen. But Konate's good in a different way. He's a different type of centre-back, and if he can perfect those characteristics, he could be with us for 10 plus years. He also needs to stay fit. I think that's another thing. For a player whose main attributes is physicality, speed, strength, the injuries could creep up maybe, and that is something we do need to manage as he goes forward, because it's not like Van Dijk, who he suffered that horrible injury. He's come back, but he's still brilliant because mentally he's that type of player. Konate could have a few injuries, his legs could go and he could suffer, and he might just not be the same. So if he can keep him fit, keep him focused on what he's already great at, don't try and make him something he's not, as in a ball-playing centre-back, and just keep him that physical monster at the back. I do think he could surpass Van Dijk in certain attributes and maybe match his level just in a different way.
Yeah, Lindo's saying, Konate is the next Carragher. The way you were describing it, I'm remembering the Hippier Honcho centre-back partnership where Hippier controlled everything, like Van Dijk. Except Van Dijk's got way better distribution and aerial. Maybe not aerial ability to Hippier, but way better distribution, way better intelligence than Hippier. Hippier was just combative. And Honcho was there sliding in, winning the ball, doing sort of sprinting work. I think that, it's that type of defensive partnership when we see them together. I think what's really interesting is Klopp at the moment is going back to the Matip and Van Dijk partnership.
Yeah.
Which I find interesting. I'm not sure why.
Would you extend him?
Matip? Would I extend him?
Yeah. Yeah, would you keep him? Would you extend his contract, or do you think it's time for him to move on?
I would. I don't think he's been bad. I think he's been really good defender, and he's good in the air. He's never had the greatest pace, Matip, but he's one of the best progressive centre backs in the Premier League because he drives forward with the ball better than anyone. I think we got him for free. We lose him for free. We've won nothing. We've lost nothing. I'd probably give him a year. I think he deserves the new Champions League format. Yeah, I probably would. I'd probably give him another year.
Okay.
And there we have it. We've gone slightly over. Thank you very much to Naim. Thank you very much to Lewis. Thank you everyone who are in the chat for getting involved in this run through of the news. This has been LFC Transfer Room. Make sure that you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. We're live every day, 7:30. And if you want to catch up on any of the stories, obviously you can replay this on demand. Thank you very much, both, and we will catch you on the next one. Take care.